Operation Iron Mirror. Hey everyone, imagine a night where the city's lights flicker like nervous fireflies and every shadow hides a secret. I'm speaking from London, but not the one you know. Beneath the hum of traffic and distant footsteps lies a world that doesn't appear on maps, doesn't exist in guides, and isn't discussed over tea. I've seen it, and tonight, you'll follow me. It began with a Signalan anomaly on our radar, something that shouldn't exist. At first, I thought it was a glitch, a misread by our sophisticated instruments. But leaning closer, watching the feed in the dim glow of the operations room, I realized this was no ordinary signal. It pulsed with a pattern, deliberate, almost human, yet entirely alien. Ignoring it was not an option. By dawn, I was in motion. Streets slick with rain reflected neon like shattered mirrors. Each puddle distorted the city's underbelly. Navigating alleys barely wide enough for a car, I checked the device on my wrist. It still pulsed. Each pulse felt like a heartbeat, drawing me deeper into a web I couldn't yet see. I reached the rendezvous point, an abandoned warehouse. The air smelled of rust, wet concrete, and something metallic. Shadows moved strangely, cast by broken windows and swinging ceiling lights. Faint clicks, echo devices, cameras, traps. Stay calm, I told myself. MI6 trains for uncertainty. Yet I felt someone or something observing me, not physically, but through that signal. The pulse grew faster. My wrist device hummed in sync with my nerves. Around the warehouse's main hall, a screen flickered to life, displaying patterns that resembled nothing on Earth, geometries defying logic. Then a voice, calm, artificial, yet familiar, spoke my name. Not through a speaker, but inside my head. The signal had become a messenger, maybe a warning. I backed up slowly, scanning the room. Floorboards creaked. Dust floated unnaturally. A shadow moved against the light. A door appeared where there was none. My training screamed danger, but curiosity propelled me forward. The signal demanded it. I whispered into the mic, "Control, I've located the source." But it's not what we expected. The response, "Keep visual, do not engage. Extraction in 15 minutes. Do not touch anything unusual." 15 minutes felt like 15 hours. At the center, a console stood sleek, black, almost liquid, glowing softly. Symbols scrolled at speeds my eyes barely followed. I hovered my fingers above it. The pulse intensified, almost sensing me. My mind screamed caution. My instincts urged curiosity. The moment I touched the console, everything changed. The room expanded. Shadows stretched into impossible angles. Sounds vibrated in my skull. Images flashed, cities, faces, codes, events unknown to me. The signal was not just a message, it was a mirror reflecting impossible realities. I stumbled back, heart racing. The screen went black. Pulse slowed, then stopped. Silence wrapped around me. Someone had created a device capable of mapping actions before they happened and left it here. I recorded every detail: code, pulse, fleeting shadows. This was my mission now. Understand, report, protect. The signal had chosen me or always known I would come. Exiting the warehouse, rain had stopped. Streets reflected reality like mirrors. The city felt alive, aware. MI6 wasn't just espionage. Sometimes it meant standing at the edge of comprehension, facing a signal that shouldn't exist and finding its meaning for the world and for you. Every alley, shadow, flicker of light might conceal more than you know. Be vigilant. Some signals shouldn't exist, but they do. And one day, they will find you. That thought lingered like smoke as I walked, coat soaked, mind tangled in impossibility. The pulse echoed subtly, a reminder that the world I knew was only a thin veneer over something stranger, more dangerous. Streets were unnaturally quiet. Neon reflections shimmered across puddles. Every step echoed back, reminding me I was being watched even if no eyes were visible. I kept pace, steady, senses on high alert, scanning for anomalies. I had to reach the safe house, not known to anyone outside the agency, not on digital maps. A place of refuge, analysis, planning. As I slipped through narrow alleys, small disturbances appeared, footprints forming and disappearing. Static patterns in fog, deliberate, guiding, or warning me. Inside, I secured doors, activated sensors. Lights flickered sequentially, monitoring every inch. I turned to the tablet with anomalies from the warehouse. Pulse data, images, shadows all loaded into the secure analysis program. There it was again, a subtle pattern, a signature left for someone who could read it. Hours passed unnoticed. Time became elastic, stretching with data flow. The signal was intelligent, teasing, almost alive. Its footprints in the static mapped intentions across locations, actions, faces unknown but instinctively feared. Then an alert movement near the outer perimeter. Not human, conventional sense aside. Cameras picked up something small, flickering, ghost-like, passing sensors easily. I crouched, hands over controls, ready to lock down the safe house. The pulse on my wrist synced with it. Someone or something traced the same patterns, walking lines I had begun to see in the static. I analyzed trajectories, anomalies. Footprints weren't random, methodical. A message orchestrating a path I hadn't realized. The signal wasn't passive. It was a guide, a challenge. Whoever left this anticipated my moves, calculated my reactions, embedded intentions in every pulse, glitch, shadow. By midnight, I was ready. Safe house quieted, sensors aligned. I mapped next steps, projecting paths through streets, analyzing patterns almost poetic. Each code line, each flicker on screen a breadcrumb, a clue to prevent catastrophe. As dawn light crept into windows, I realized the signal's purpose was to reveal hidden truths. Not the anomaly itself, but what it could unlock in the wrong hands. I was at the center, witness, guardian, participant in a plan stretching far beyond London. MI6 comprehension. Fingers hovered over the tablet. Follow the footprints. Trace the static. Find the source. Instinct screamed caution. Curiosity drove me forward. Mission wasn't stealth anymore, was comprehension. Understand the signal, decipher intentions, anticipate moves hidden in the static. As the city slowly awakened, I prepared for the next phase. Footprints in the static were more than a trail. They were a message. I would follow, through fear, shadows, unknowns, because somewhere in the pattern lay a truth that could not be ignored. Follow the footprints, trace the static. Find the source. That mantra repeated in my mind as I stepped out into the narrow streets of London. The early fog clinging to every lamppost, every iron railing. The city seemed quieter than usual, almost expectant, as if it knew I was on the edge of uncovering something that wasn't meant to be seen. I moved with purpose, aware that each step I took left traces, echoes of my presence that might be monitored. But as the pulse of the signal guided me, I realized something unusual. There were no echoes in certain areas, no reflections, no residual data. It was as if someone or something had erased my existence from those spaces entirely. The man with no echo. I didn't know if it was a metaphor, a warning, or a person. But instinctively, I understood that he, or it was linked to the signal I had been chasing. The first lead took me to an abandoned metro station beneath the city. Rusted tracks disappeared into darkness, and the stale air carried the scent of damp stone and forgotten years. As I descended, the pulse on my wrist device became erratic, spikes of energy slicing through the static, almost like a heartbeat trying to warn me. Every shadow seemed to shift independently, and for a moment, I thought I saw movement that contradicted logic itself, angles that shouldn't exist. Silhouettes that vanished before my eyes could register them. I activated my thermal scanner. Nothing. The echo detectors registered no residual human signatures. That's when I understood. The signal had a guardian. Someone trained to move without leaving a trace. Someone invisible to conventional surveillance. My mission had just become personal. The man with no echo wasn't just part of the mystery. He was a sentinel, and I had entered his domain. The silence was broken by a faint hum, almost melodic, resonating from the far end of the platform. My fingers brushed over the tablet, projecting the signal's path onto my HUD. It led me through service tunnels and maintenance corridors, each step deeper into the labyrinth, more disorienting than the last. Dust hung in the air, disturbed only by the invisible presence I was following. Then it happened. A flicker of movement at the edge of my vision, a figure slipping behind a pillar, vanishing instantly. The signal pulsed violently on my wrist, syncing with my accelerated heartbeat. Whoever this was, he knew I was coming, anticipated my every move. And yet, he left just enough for me to follow. Breadcrumbs in the static, guiding me closer to the truth. I rounded a corner and found an old operations room, screens flickering with distorted data, graphs that twisted and turned like living organisms. And there he was, or at least his projection, a man appearing on the monitors in multiple locations at once, always shifting, always present, yet never physically observable. My comms crackled. Control, it's not just a signal. It's a network, and someone's moving through it without leaving a trace. The reply was tense. Understood. Proceed with extreme caution. Do not engage directly. Observe, record, extract. But observation felt insufficient. The pulse demanded interaction, demanded understanding. I approached the central console. The screens displayed maps of London, overlaid with paths that weren't on any GPS, footprints in the static I hadn't yet decoded. And then, the anomaly. A trail that led beyond the city, beyond the known limits of operations, into patterns that suggested intelligence far beyond conventional understanding. I realized the man with no echo wasn't just human. He was an extension of the signal, a living interface, trained or designed to manipulate perception, to guard the anomaly from anyone who might misuse it. And now, I was entangled in his web. I followed the mapped trajectory, moving through streets barely visible, slipping into shadows as if the fog itself conspired to hide me. Every sound was amplified: the distant squeal of a train, a cat scraping metal, the hum of hidden machinery. Each step drew me closer, yet always kept me at a measured distance from the truth. Hours passed in a tense dance of pursuit and observation. Finally, in a deserted courtyard, I saw a faint distortion, like heat waves rising off stone. And within that distortion, a presence shifting fluid, observing me. I spoke aloud as I had to anchor myself. I know you're here. I'm not here to harm, only to understand. Silence. Then a pulse of the signal, stronger than ever, vibrating through my wrist and chest. Recognition. A challenge. An acknowledgement that the man with no echo was aware, and our paths were now intertwined. And as the first streaks of dawn crept across the rooftops, I understood the stakes, the signal, the footprints. The anomalies, they weren't just threats to national security. They were tests of perception, patience, and courage. To move forward, I had to follow the man with no echo, decipher his patterns, and confront a truth that may have no precedent. I understood then that following the man with no echo was indeed just a physical pursuit, was a mental labyrinth, a test of focus, patience, and intuition. The pulse of the signal guided me now like a thread through a maze, pulling me toward the underbelly of the city where wires, cables, and hidden conduits crisscrossed like veins beneath concrete and steel. Shadows stretched unnaturally along the walls, distorted by the dim, flickering light. And every hum of electricity carried secrets I had yet to decipher. The first clue appeared in a forgotten subway junction, abandoned decades ago. Rusted wires hung like vines from the ceiling, their ends sparking faintly as if whispering coded messages. I traced the pattern, fingers brushing lightly over the conduits, feeling vibrations that were too precise to be random. Someone or something had wired this area with a network designed for observation, manipulation, and control, and the signal was embedded deep within it. As I moved further, I noticed small, almost imperceptible disturbances along the cables. A flicker here, a pulse there, tiny anomalies that formed a hidden language. The man with no echo had left Tracy's footprints in the network itself, and I had begun to learn to read them. It was like watching shadows dance beneath a dim street lamp, revealing the presence of things unseen by the untrained eye. The corridors twisted, and I had to crouch, slide, and climb through gaps barely wide enough for a human body. Every step carried the weight of potential exposure. If the wrong eye were watching or, if the signal sensed hesitation, the operation could collapse in an instant. Yet my resolve only hardened. Understanding this network, this web of hidden currents, was no longer optional. It was imperative. Then I saw it, a junction where multiple wires converged, forming a strange node that pulsed with the same rhythm as the signal on my wrist. I crouched close, analyzing the patterns. They weren't static. They moved, shifted, almost as if alive, transmitting information, energy, perhaps even consciousness. My pulse quickened. Whoever built this had woven intelligence into the very infrastructure, and the man with no echo moved effortlessly within it, invisible, untouchable, omnipresent. A faint metallic scraping echoed nearby. I froze. The shadows around me seemed to grow heavier, stretching unnaturally, distorting my perception. My wrist device pulsed violently, signaling proximity. I followed the vibrations, feeling my own heartbeat sync with the rhythm. And then, suddenly, a figure appeared at the edge of my vision, just for a fraction of a second, gone before I could react. The man with no echo had allowed himself to be glimpsed, a reminder that I was not alone, but also that direct contact was forbidden, controlled, calculated. I moved cautiously toward the node, documenting every anomaly, every pulse, every distortion. The data streamed into my tablet, forming a map that began to make sense only in fragments. It's a complex grid connecting this forgotten station to communications towers, underground bunkers, and data centers scattered across the city. The signal wasn't just local. It had reach, depth, and intention. Someone had built a hidden mirror of the city's infrastructure, one capable of seeing, influencing, and perhaps even predicting actions before they occurred. Hours blurred into one another. The shadows beneath the wires seemed to stretch into infinity. Yet I pressed onward, following the subtle cues left in the vibrations, in the anomalies, in the pulse itself. And then, at the heart of the node, I discovered a small, unmarked panel. Its surface shimmered faintly, like liquid metal, and as I touched it, the pulse synchronized fully, almost as if the system recognized my presence, acknowledged me as a participant in its hidden narrative. The screens lit up, displaying live feeds, coded patterns, and maps interwoven with data streams I had only glimpsed before. The signal wasn't just a message anymore, was a guide, a guardian, a challenge. The man with no echo had built a labyrinth, not of walls and doors, but of currents, wires, and signals, and I was now fully inside it. To understand, to proceed, meant navigating this invisible network, reading the patterns, and anticipating every ripple. And as the first light of morning seeped through cracks in the concrete above, I realized something chilling. Every wire, every pulse, every shadow beneath this city could be a witness, a weapon, or a trap. And the man with no echo was watching, shaping, guiding, testing me. My mission had become less about surveillance and more about survival within a living, breathing network that spanned beneath London like veins of hidden intent. I leaned against the cool concrete wall, catching my breath, and whispered, "The shadows are alive. They know I'm here. And I have to follow them to the source." Every instinct screamed caution. Every training module, every exercise, every prior mission prepared me only partially for this. The signal had chosen me to confront its truth. And the city beneath me had become a reflection of possibilities, dangers, and the unknown. The shadows beneath the wires had shown me enough to understand the scale, yet revealed nothing of intent. That was the cruel brilliance of this operation. The signal teased, guided, and informed me, yet withheld the ultimate truth. As I ascended from the underground labyrinth into the abandoned service tunnels above, the pulse on my wrist remained insistent, almost sentient, each beat a reminder that I was not navigating alone. The city above was waking, indifferent to the invisible network that stretched beneath its streets. Early morning commuters shuffled past without a hint of the hidden machinery that lay beneath their feet. Streetlights still hummed, cables vibrating subtly, wires transmitting invisible currents of information. Every reflection in the puddles mirrored my image, but as I glanced into each, I realized that even mirrors could lie. None of them captured the anomaly, the pulse, the shadow threading through the city unseen. It was a mirror that revealed nothing, and yet everything. I reached the rendezvous point, an old communications hub. Long decommissioned, but still humming faintly with residual power. Dusty panels, peeling paint, and broken monitors greeted me. Yet the pulse led me here, to this place, and I could feel the energy in the walls, almost like the heartbeat of the city itself. I crouched near the main console, fingers hovering over the controls, scanning, decoding, searching for what wasn't immediately visible. Then the reflection flickered. Not in glass or metal, but in the air itself, subtle distortions, warping shadows, a shimmer of presence. The signal was alive here, threaded into the very architecture, yet it would not reveal itself directly. The man with no echo had anticipated this. Every approach, every attempt to grasp the anomaly directly was met with subtle resistance, like a force field of perception. I set up a series of sensors, triangulating disturbances, tracing energy patterns, recording micropulses. The more I watched, the less clarity I seemed to achieve. Every variable I thought I could control slipped like water through my fingers. It was maddening, frustrating in a way that sharpened every sense, heightened every intuition. And yet, I had to persist. The mission demanded it. Hours turned into a day, the hum of the city outside blending with the faint vibrations of the signal beneath. I realized then the cruel paradox. The closer I came to understanding, the more the mirror revealed nothing, forcing me to rely on instinct, observation, and careful deduction. Every flash of insight was countered by layers of uncertainty. It was a game of shadows, perception, and interpretation. Then I noticed tiny anomalies within the anomalies. Microcurrents, flickers, brief pulses of light on dormant monitors, sequences almost too brief to perceive. They formed a hidden language, a code embedded in the city's forgotten infrastructure. The signal, the man with no echo, had left breadcrumbs, not in the obvious channels, but in the silent, overlooked corners. Every misstep, every overlooked shadow, could have consequences I could not yet predict. I leaned back, exhaling slowly, heart racing, adrenaline coursing through my veins. This mirror that revealed nothing had become a lesson in vigilance, in patience, in the acceptance that some truths are hidden until you're ready to perceive them fully. I recorded every anomaly, every flicker, every pulse, knowing that even if understanding escaped me now, the documentation could serve those who came after war, those who could anticipate the next move. And as night fell again over London, casting long shadows along deserted streets, I realized the truth. The mirror revealed nothing because it was not meant to. Its purpose was not exposure, but preparation. To survive this operation, I had to internalize the lessons, follow the patterns, and trust the signal, even when it defied reason, logic, and expectation. I straightened, glancing at the flickering monitors one last time. Somewhere within these distorted reflections, hidden currents, and coded pulses lay the next step, the next revelation, the truth that would test every skill I possessed. And I knew that the man with no echo was already a step ahead, watching, guiding, and waiting for me to act. I straightened, glancing at the flickering monitors one last time. Somewhere within these distorted reflections, hidden currents, and coded pulses lay the next step. The next revelation, the truth that would test every skill I possessed. And I knew that the man with no echo was already a step ahead, watching, guiding, and waiting for me to act. The city at night had a rhythm all its own. A pulse I had come to recognize as the undercurrent of surveillance, communication, and unseen operations. Every street lamp, every CCTV camera, every abandoned alleyway was part of a network, and within that network flowed the signal live, intelligent, and aware of me. I moved swiftly, silently, every step measured, every breath controlled, attuned to the subtle hums and vibrations that told me the city itself was watching. The final hunt began at the communications tower, a monolithic structure at the edge of London. From this vantage point, the city sprawled below me. Veins of light and shadow crisscrossing streets, alleys, and tunnels. The pulse on my wrist device had never been stronger, almost deafening, almost tangible. It's resonating through every bone, every nerve. It was as if the signal had concentrated here at this apex, converging all traces into a single nexus. I ascended the tower with precision, mindful of every movement, avoiding cameras, laser sensors, and pressure plates hidden beneath layers of metal grating. My eyes scanned for anomalies, subtle distortions, irregular reflections that indicated presence where none should exist. And then I saw him, the man, with no echo, emerging not as a tangible figure, but as a pattern in the light, a distortion in the reflection, a ripple in the signal itself. He had anticipated my approach, yet the pulse beckoned me forward. The console at the top of the tower flickered to life as I approached, displaying streams of encrypted data, maps, and codes flowing faster than I could process. The signal's intensity made the air vibrate, a low hum filling the chamber, echoing in rhythm with my heartbeat. Every piece of information, every line of code, every subtle cue was part of a larger message. The signal was revealing itself not as a tool or a weapon, but as a mirror of intent, a map of actions that could not yet be fully understood. I reached out to interact with the console, fingertips brushing the smooth surface, feeling the pulse surge beneath my skin. The man with no echo manifested again, this time clearer, his presence intertwined with the data streams, moving through circuits and frequencies with a grace that defied comprehension. He didn't speak, yet the intent was clear: to test, to challenge, to ensure that only someone with focus, discipline, and perception could succeed. Hours passed as I engaged in a delicate dance of analysis and observation, following the patterns embedded in the signal, profiting its flow, and mapping its trajectory. Every step revealed new layers, new connections, subtle threads linking locations, events, and people I had never encountered. The hunt was not about capture or confrontation. It was about understanding, adaptation, and endurance. By dawn, the patterns had begun to coalesce. I could see the faint outlines of a plan, a design hidden in the currents of the signal, the work of someone who had anticipated every contingency, every countermeasure. And yet, the man with no echo remained elusive, always present, yet untouchable, a guide and a guardian of a truth that was only partially revealed. As the first light of day illuminated the city, I stepped back from the console, mind exhausted but focused. The hunt that never ended was not a failure. It was the nature of the signal, the reality of its purpose: to guard, to test, to challenge, to prepare. I realized then that the operation would continue beyond my presence, beyond my understanding, as long as the signal existed and as long as the man with no echo moved unseen. I left the tower, descending into the waking city, aware that the pulse, the signal, and the shadow of the man with no echo would always be with me, threading through every street, every alley, every wire beneath London. The mission was complete for now, yet it was never truly over. It was a hunt without end, a pursuit of understanding, and a test that would endure as long as the hidden currents of the world remained. And as I merged with the flow of the city, blending into the streets, the fog, the shadows, I understood the final lesson of the Operation Iron Mirror. Some truths are never fully revealed, some hunts are never truly finished, and some signals shouldn't exist. Yet they do, and we must remain vigilant, perceptive, and unyielding in their presence.